Hey everybody, it's Chris Perovic, and I'm back here to talk about how I became the
Champion of Champions.
in GOAT format. And the way I did that, if you don't know, is I won the Clash of Champions tournament 2 weeks ago on April 24th. This was an invite-only event where all the participants had to have won some kind of major tournament in the past. So it was a super stacked tournament, absolutely no free wins anywhere. I came out ahead, and I'm here to tell you how I did it. If you like this video, or if it intrigues you at all, and you want to see more content like this, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to this channel to catch more videos like this in the future. All right, so let's get started. I first and foremost couldn't have won without my team. I had a whole team of people behind me, and well, let me talk about it. So first of all, no man is an island, okay? And for this event in particular, I mean, I got to tell you that going into it, my interest has been sort of at an all-time low, because I want to say what the format is today isn't quite what I fell in love with when I started playing it. I really do enjoy playing Go Control mirror matches, and Go Control's actually really fallen out of favor lately. So I don't really care so much to play against like Reasoning Gate Turbo or Warrior or Chaos Turbo, actually most Chaos Turbo decks. And I don't know, I'm struggling with it because I do love the format at its core, and I do think it can be great, but there's some matchups that aren't really fun for me. So there's that piece of it, but also on the flip side, that my time is now more limited than actually ever before. I've been taking on a bunch of extra time at work, or spending a lot of time extra at work to catch up on my projects there. Some of you know, I'm engaged. I'm planning a wedding next year, and I don't know. It's hard to come by some free time. So leading up to this event, you know, I didn't have a lot of time to test for it in particular. If I played, I don't know, a match a day on average, I think that's probably like on the high end of what the actual number was. And when I did, I always played like the same Chaos Turbo deck, and I didn't really change many cards. There were just some core principles that I knew that I liked, but you know, deep diving into the format, testing various side deck cards, etc. Like, I never had real time for that. So I leaned on my team. I'm connected to a network of people who are always eager to help me whenever I call upon them, and for that I am especially appreciative. And you know, throughout my Yu-Gi-Oh career, those people have certainly been all my Team Overdose teammates, but this event in particular, I just want to give a special shout out to James Ark, Dale, Swisky, and Smoker. Without these guys, I probably would have ran Lockdown Burn, because that's what I was actually intending to use heading into this event. But thankfully they talked me out of that, and I ran, I guess, a real deck, and I did really well. So I just want to say thank you to you guys. You guys were a core element of my success. The next part that I probably couldn't have done this without would be the deck list, right? Because that's a pretty important component. And here it is. And I don't know how much time I want to spend talking about the deck list. I mean, you guys have all seen Chaos Turbo before. How new is this really? I don't think it's that new. There are some innovations. Most notably the lack of Night Assailant and card destruction. You'll also see like some other card choices, like I drop Regeki Breakdown to 2. I do main deck the Tribe, the Breaker, and a copy of Tsukiyomi. People like to talk about sometimes the combination of 3 Magician of Faith with the Upstart Goblin. I don't know if 3 Magician of Faith is actually even needed, so I don't know that I want to couple those two things together. Suffice it to say that this is the deck. You can tell it's sort of like it's got a lower ceiling than other Chaos Turbo variants that do run Night Assailant, but I think it has a higher floor. And what I mean by that is you can tell by the inclusion of Sakuretsu armors in particular that the deck is sort of geared to be aggro decks, which took up the plurality of the field. When you combine Warrior and Chaos Warrior decks together, there were more of those than there were Chaos Turbo in the field, for example. So I think Night Assailant's really weak against those aggro decks. I think Trap Dust Shoot is particularly disruptive to the efficacy of Night Assailant, and I found myself over the past couple weeks just not running that, and I ran Mystic Tomatoes instead of Gravekeeper Spy, and some other different ratios and stuff. But I'm just saying, like I didn't miss it, so I went into this tournament, and that was one of the key principles I kind of built my deck around: the inclusion of Sakuretsu armor, then the lack of Night Assailant, and everything else was built around that. For the side deck, that it started off a lot more varied than it is now, or it was for this tournament, and at the last minute I scoped out the field again, and I kind of trimmed down the variety of decks I was covering for. For example, I took out Jougans from my side deck because there was only one person who I thought might be playing Reasoning Gate Turbo, and it happened to be the case. I played him round one. I happened to win, so I'm grateful for that. But you know, in that round one, I was really kind of annoyed that I dropped those Jougans out. Anyway, so yeah, the side deck, some of this is kind of obvious. I think like you would look at a Stirrer Priest and Dust Tornado for the Thunder Dragon Chaos Control matchup. You might think that Kaiku and Trap Dust Shoot and Mind Control were for Chaos Turbo, and I'd say that those cards don't always come in. I mean, Trap Dust Shoot in particular doesn't always come in. Sometimes it's Dust Tornado, sometimes it's none of them. And it's not necessarily straightforward with, like, a lot of people have these post-side transition plans. I do it a little different. Like, for example, whether or not I keep in Breaker against Chaos Turbo depends if I see cards like Mirror Force or Solemn Judgment. But if they're just on, like, Jar of Greeds and Regeki Breaks, I don't keep Breaker in my main deck. Anyway, so, and then also I side deck in Berserk Gorillas and Spirit Reapers for the aggro matchup. My testing group were all really adamant about the usefulness of Spirit Reaper against aggro, and I was on board, in particular because I was coming off of running Mystic Tomatoes for a while, and at the last minute I threw in these Berserk Gorillas because I just felt like those were super strong cards against aggro, and I just really wanted to be extra prepared for the aggro matchup. Suffice to say, that's a Chaos Turbo for you. I mean, it's nothing I mean, most of it is stuff you've seen before. Maybe the Sakuretsus are new, maybe the lack of Night Assailants are new, but I mean, this is pretty straightforward. The only thing that's probably worth commenting on is in the past 2 weeks since I won the tournament, I have played against a few mirror matches with other people who use decks built like this, and I actually enjoy playing these mirror matches more than I've enjoyed playing against ordinary Chaos Turbo that has that, you know, higher ceiling because of Night Assailant. I just find these matches are particularly more skillful. So I hope that, I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything. I'm just saying I hope that that catches on a bit. I hope that more people kind of go this direction to counter aggro, which is kind of like the necessary inclusion in the metagame for us to be main decking or justify main decking Sakuretsu at this point. But you know, that's a format shift I'd be on board with, and I think it just makes the game healthier overall. Outside of that, I got nothing else to say about this deck. If you've got a question or comment about it, I'll happily elaborate. Just comment down below, and I'll chime in on the video and answer any questions you've got. That said, the last part of this that I think was integral to my success in the tournament were the plays that I made. And in particular, what I'm trying to say is that, like, even if you had my team of people and even if you had my deck list, there's something in particular about the way that I play that I think contributed to my success, and I want to talk about that a little bit, you know, while being as humble as I can, just to say that I think that in a lot of situations that did make the difference, and I'm going to share some things that maybe you're going to want to know if you try to either take the deck and run with it, or, you know, build on it into your own version. And with that said, I'm gonna load up some replays from the tournament. I'll trim down this footage so it's not covering all of them, because the matches, some of them were quite long. I'll start with my match against Geist D, and then go into my match against Johnny Lee, and then the finals match against the Nano, who I played earlier in the tournament, but I don't think the first match was that interesting. And I'll just highlight some key moments for you guys. Starting with my match against Geist D, I actually thought that was the best match in the whole tournament. It was the most interesting, I think. So with that said, let me load that up real quick, and here we go. So this is my match against Geist D. So the match opens up with me drawing Delinquent Duo. Great card. I'm pretty sure I'm going to hit his Sinister Serpent. I felt like I did that against Geist a few times. And yeah, he opens up Sinister Serpent. And I know that he's running Goat Control. I know some other information about his deck. I know that he's running Creature Swap. So, you know, I look at my hand and I'm thinking there's a way to exploit that. I'm going to set Sangan. A lot of people are hesitant to set Sangan. They fear, especially when I've got a Tribe and a Regeki Break, you're thinking, oh, I got to play around Nobleman. Well, Nobleman is running 2 copies, and he's got the Sinister. I know he's got Sinister, so I know that, you know, his 2 Creature Swap and his 3 Metamorphosis are live. I think it's way more important to bait out those cards than the Nobleman. So I set my Sangan to start. And sure enough, I catch the Creature Swap. So in this spot, you know, it's the turn after he Creature Swapped and took the Sangan. I want to kill the Sangan, but I'm actually more concerned about, I think, the Dark Mimic level 1. Yeah, so I'm going to kill Sangan. I'm hoping to get Sinister so I could pitch to kill the Dark Mimic level 1. But I also know that he runs Dark Mimic level 3, so the last thing I want to do is leave this Tribe on the field and not try to attempt to destroy this. But he stops my Tribe attack, and I set Mirror Force because I know he's going to get the Dark Mimic level 3. I also know I don't have a Chaos Sorcerer alive to banish it, so that Dark Mimic level 3 is going to be kind of annoying, as might be Asura, the Asura Priest in his hand. But more importantly, that I know he's going to flip up the Sangan and hit for 1,000 damage, because why wouldn't you? So this will give me an opportunity to both get the Mimic level 3 off the field and also get my Sinister off of the Sangan. And sure enough, that's exactly what happens. He attacks into the Mirror Force, and this kind of stabilizes the game a little bit. The Sinister Serpent, at a minimum, will wall off that Asura Priest for the time being, and his deck doesn't run a lot of attackers outside of Mystic Tomatoes. So I'm actually like pretty comfortable. Like, I think we're gonna get a lot more turns this game. Again, I don't have an answer for this Dark Mimic level 1, but I do draw into a Tsukiyomi, and while I am fearful of this being a Book of Moon, I'm also thinking that my read on the face down is that it is a Sinister, because he did not flip it. It's not a or it could be a Mystic Tomato, but I would have thought he would have attacked with Mystic Tomato before, but anyway, neither here nor there. What was I gonna say? Oh, I don't have a light for Thunder Dragon, so I really feel like I need to get something going, and I'm inclined, because the only real good snatch target in his deck is gonna be a BLS. I'm inclined to try to get to the Thunder Dragon, make my Chaos Sorcerer alive to answer potentially a BLS, but specifically to get things going, because if I can flip the Dark Mimic level 1 and protect it, like with this Regeki Break, there's a good chance he's going to have a really tough time breaking that lock without investing some cards, now that I've killed one of his Asura Priests. So I MST the back row, hoping that it wasn't a book, and it was not a book, but really trying to play around something like Ring of Destruction or something. I Snatch Steal the Dark Mimic level 1, I Suki it up and down, and I drew, thankfully, a Nolman, and that's really critical because I know that he has Sinister Serpent, and Sinister Serpent can run over the Dark Mimic level 1 and break that board. So I didn't really have a plan for having to solve that. Suffice to say, I drew Nolman, and he happened to have set the Sinister Serpent, and that took care of my problem. So his deck only has really like Sanguine and Mystic Tomato to commit to the board now. But he uses Snatch, so tells me that he's either got a Tsukiyomi or Book of Moon. He ends his turn by setting a card, and I use Regeki Break on the face down card. I could have used Regeki Break on the Snatch Steal, and that's actually a misplay. I think I should have used Regeki Break on the Snatch Steal. I don't know why I used it on the back row. I think in my mind I had some other interaction that I was thinking about or concerned about. But the more I thought about his deck, and particularly as we get later into the game, I reflected on this moment where I put myself in a spot where I had to use, or I committed myself to using Heavy Storm, and just didn't, I guess I didn't like the way that I played this. In particular, also, now I draw Thunder Dragon, and now I have this option to either use Heavy Storm on the Snatch Steal and start Tsukiyomi flipping, or, you know, summoning Sorcerer and, you know, banishing or attacking over it. He's got a Light and a Dark, though, so I feel like I need to keep the Chaos Sorcerer reserved for BLS. So I'm in this spot, and sure enough, this is what I decided to do. I felt like if he couldn't answer Dark Mimic level 1 though in the previous turn, he had to use a Snatch Steal on it. He probably doesn't have a monster to summon to attack over it, so I'm probably going to be able to get this Suki loop in, and I used my Heavy Storm reluctantly. And I draw a Book of Moon. Best card for me to draw in this situation. It protects it from a double BLS attack, and if he draws Sanguine, it's the best card for me to have had. But he sets 4, and I immediately regret using a Heavy Storm. I have a feeling by now he's drawn into a Nolman, so I have to set something before I set this Magician of Faith. Sure enough, he has Nolman to catch the Koichi, but he still can't answer the Dark Mimic level 1. So now I set the Faith. I know that he's got a Solemn Judgment, but this is great because I also have a Ring face down. I think that, and I also draw into the Magician of Faith. This is all going to work out really well. So on this spot, just to comment on it, I disagree with his play. I understand it entirely. It's totally sensible. He turned Sanguine to defense mode before he activated Metamorphosis because Thousand Eyes Restrict was going to come on the board, and once Thousand Eyes is on the board, you can't turn Sanguine to defense. And his thinking is, well, if I'm able to answer the Thousand Eyes on a future turn, he doesn't want to leave Sanguine in attack mode to eat unnecessary damage. Actually, I think that's a mistake. I can understand that if you're less than 2,000 life points, but because if I answer that Thousand Eyes would say like a Tsukiyomi or something, BLS can attack over the Sanguine, and that would be game. So I understand the inclination to turn Sanguine to defense. However, you know that I have Tsukiyomi, and you just cannot afford, like when I've got a face down, which could be a Book of Moon or a Regeki Break, and you have no plan to answer the face down with like another Metamorphosis or something like that, you cannot afford to not attack that face down. And in this case, this is kind of exactly what happens. He uses a Thousand Eyes, I use Ring, I flip Faith, I use Heavy Storm, and I Suki back down the Faith, and that's absolutely, it locks him out of the game. There's no cards he can draw from this point that's fundamentally going to change much, particularly with my life points so high. And now I get to the deepest part of my deck where I draw Graceful, and I've got plays. And in particular, the Suki Nolman is still protecting me from a BLS top deck. If I peek at his hand, I see he's got the BLS, but there's not really much he can do. Even if he played it, it doesn't change much. He draws Duo. As long as he doesn't hit Suki or Nolman, I'm fine. He doesn't. He can't win this game. I'm able to burn, by the way, the Regeki Break on the Asura Priest and keep Breaker as a, like I can banish the Goat token with Sorcerer and then Breaker have an attack, like keeping Breaker on the field as an attacker. Again, just because I have that Suki Nolman to be able to answer BLS. And it seems like that's exactly what happened. And sure enough, yeah, that's the end of the game. He's got no more gas in his deck. He's got no more protective cards, no more anything. And then we go on to game 2. Again, I open up with Delinquent Duo. I drew really well this match. I think, though, it's going to hit Sinister Serpent again. And one more time, I'm also opening up Sangan. And because I know he's got Sinister Serpent, it's the exact same thing as game 1. I'm going to bait the Creature Swap and Metamorphosis. He did have Metamorphosis, so it's interesting that game 1 he used a Creature Swap to take the Unknown face down turn 1, but game 2 he did not use a Metamorphosis to take a face down. I guess the difference is you can keep tempo up with the Creature Swap, and Metamorphosis can kind of draw out the game, and you maybe don't want to do that if you're him and you've gotten a Asura Priest. But in this case, he drew Dust Shoot, and what's really critical when your opponent draws Dust Shoot is to not give them information. They have all the information about your hand. The last thing you want to do is give them information about your face down cards on the field. So I think that I'm gonna wind up setting I'm like, you would think that Spy is the card to set here against Asura Priest, and I know that he's thinking that. So I know that he's got limited answers to Gravekeeper Spy. So if he was sitting on a Metamorphosis, that now's the time he's going to want to use that. So I felt compelled to set the Regeki Break to catch the Metamorphosis, because I just don't have an answer otherwise to it's not like I'm sitting here with a light in my graveyard and I'm able to draw Chaos Sorcerer or something like that. If he resolves Thousand Eyes, it's going to be a problem for me. I'm going to have to take the minus on it to resolve my flip. But when I do that, I want to have the extra draw from Dekoichi rather than just the pressure from Gravekeeper Spy. So just think about that. You know, he sets Sinister, activates meta, I destroy on my next turn. If I flip up Spy to attack mode, it's vulnerable to the Asura Priest. If I put both in attack mode, they're both vulnerable to Mirror Force or whatever. But at least Dekoichi will get me the extra draw, and maybe I just get Thunder Dragon and be like that much closer to putting together a combo to be able to answer future BLS or Thousand Eyes plays. Anyway, I think Dekoichi was the right set here. It's unfortunate that I have to set Regeki Break early. Sure enough, he goes Thousand Eyes, and he also has the Torrential to turn off the Dekoichi. So he was fearful of Gravekeeper Spy. Thankfully for me, I think that this gives me an opportunity to stall out the game. If he doesn't have BLS, but he's going to have BLS as we saw. So I draw a Thunder Dragon. It's too late for that. This Spy probably isn't going to do much. He actually draws Nobleman, and I think I'm locked out of the game here. It's going to take a very good series of top decks. BLS is a good top deck, but it's not going to be so great because he actually has a brain control. He doesn't actually have to use his BLS, so he's in a great spot. So in this spot, he Trap Dust Shoots me again. He sees the Mirror Force and Asura Priest. He obviously is going to put down the Asura Priest, but I don't set the Mirror Force. This is just what I was telling you before, that when your opponent has access to the information in your hand, the last thing you want to do is give them access to the information on your field. And even if you can, like I'm at 6,900, even if he drops a BLS and an Asura Priest with next to the Dark Mimic level 3, that's 5,700. I'm going to still be alive by 1,200. So I'm not necessarily worried about being gamed. But I am concerned about, for example, if he draws Breaker or MST, being able to hit the right face down card. So at the very least, if I draw a spell or trap, or don't set a monster on my following turn, I can make the new draw disguised as something other than Mirror Force, or try to convince him that that's the one to play, to try to hit. I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. So in that case, I shuffled my hand and I set a Book of Moon. Obviously, I think that he thinks that that's probably Mirror Force, the one that's set. And so yeah, he doesn't summon. His. I guess the BLS doesn't make any sense. Well, he doesn't have to summon. I guess he has nothing to summon to do anything with. It's funny he forgot Sinister though. Anyway, so in this spot, he summons Mystic Tomato. Again, I don't set the Mirror Force because I'm playing it off like it's a Mirror Force. And he turns the Mimic level 3 to defense mode. When obviously I know it's a Book of Moon, you know it's a Book of Moon, but he thinks it's a Mirror Force. And this is just to say, this is the power of, Dale and I did a podcast with David Bowie a couple weeks back. You should check that out. You can search out Gate Guardian podcast, Chris Perovic, Dale Bolito, and you'll see that we talked about making reads and controlling the flow of information in your games. And this is an example of me doing that exact thing, where I am acting as if that this is a mirror force, and I'm convincing him that it's a mirror force, slash forcing him to play around as if it's mirror force. And it actually, I don't think it's not going to pay off. It's not going to pay off at all. But the point is that this is, like, I was locked out of the game a few turns ago. It doesn't really change much. But anyway, now I have to mirror force. I'm getting way too low. And the game's all but over now. He's got Solemn down with BLS. And okay. Anyway, so we head into game 3. This is a great game. I open a really mediocre hand. The saving grace is that there's a Thunder Dragon, and that's going to allow me to piece things together in the mid and late game. Oh, you know what? I know that his card just look. I wasn't actually watching his hand. I see obviously that it's a Mimic level 3. I didn't mean to look at that. So I draw this hand, and it's a pretty standard hand, but it's actually like a really great hand against Goat Control, because monsters like Dekoichi and Gravekeeper Spy, if left unanswered in this matchup, become really problematic for Goat Control to handle. And in particular, if you're able to, stop the Mystic Tomato from suicide with Dekoichi, or Creature Swap or Metamorphosis from resolving on a Gravekeeper Spy, it could be a really, those could be really problematic cards for the matchup. So I'm really happy when this Dekoichi resolves. I don't attack the face down because I'm not trying to walk into a Mystic Tomato going out to level 1 to level 3 play. And there's really no need, because he doesn't run Dekoichis of his own Dekoichis, so there's no need for me to attack the face down. Even if it's a Mimic level 1, he can flip it and I'll get the damage in rather than, you know what I mean? Rather than just destroying it for him. It only doesn't work out if he has a Tsukiyomi in his hand too. In this case, he doesn't flip, so, I'm thinking this could still be a Mystic Tomato. I have, well, there was a play there. I don't know if you guys caught that. I Dust Tornadoed end phased, set Torrential. On my turn, I flipped the Koichi with the Book of Moon, and then flipped it back up with Torrential. I did not know that it was going to be a Sinister Serpent. I was hoping that the first one was Mystic Tomato and the second one was going to be like a Dark Mimic level 1. So this unfortunately just broke even. The Torrential just paying for the Dark Mimic level 3. But that was a cool play. And I'm in this spot where, I don't really have a lot going, but I am 5 cards in my deck deeper than my opponent. This is why Chaos Turbo. A lot of people, by the way, say Chaos Turbo isn't Chaos Turbo because it doesn't run Reasonings or Monster Gates or something like that. But when you run a bunch of flips, in particular 3 of flips, that when you get Nolmans, you lose 2 copies from your deck, or Dekoichi drawing you an extra card, or Spy searching out another copy, or Tomato searching out another copy, what winds up happening is you get so much farther deeper down in your deck quicker than, say, Goat Control does, more often than not. And that speed is what gives Chaos Turbo its namesake. So here I am, I'm just building up board presence, making it difficult for him to put something together. In this case, yeah, but my issue is I haven't drawn any Trinity cards. If I do, it's going to become a blowout. But I don't. I have really standard hands, like no, luck sacking here. I'm committing to the board. There's actually like a sequence of plays here. These Gravekeeper Spy, like I'm trying to think about a scenario where, I didn't really want to set Ring here, but I'm trying to think about a scenario where he'll commit another monster to the board, but I'll have a Nobleman, and I'll be able to connect with the 36 for my 3 spies, the 14 for his tomatoes, that's 50, and maybe another 14. Like maybe I have to tribute off a Sinister for a Thunder Dragon or whatever to be able to make this damage happen. But I actually have, like, I'm really close, just because of the spies. I'm really close to putting together a game shot. It could be just like Chaos Sorcerer away from something piecing itself together. But right now I'm just playing a waiting game, and these spies are really holding out strong. Let me just peek at his cards. Yeah, for sure. Look at this. It's really difficult to break through here, right? Because your creature swap can only answer one of the spies. This is unfortunate that Chaos Turbo runs Gravekeeper Spy as often as it does, because this is a problem for Goat Control. It's always been a problem, even historically, but it is what it is. You also notice that he runs Geister and 1 copy of Solemn Judgment. In Goat Control, that's the best number to run. Other people run 3. I find I really don't like playing control matches where there's such a huge life point differential. I don't want to start a game at 1,000 or 2,000 life points and my opponent starts at 8,000 and I can only absorb 1 direct attack, but they can absorb 3 direct attacks. That makes the balance between us really imbalanced. So I don't like 3 Solemn Judgments. I think 1 is good, and in particular against Goat Control, when your opponents will leave the Goat tokens up and they're just thinking, oh, I'm gonna Heavy Storm for game, and you're just, nope, you can turn off that Heavy Storm for game. So I think it's really good. Anyway, I'm not gonna harp on that too much. So in this case, I set another card, the Book of Moons, because I knew he ran Brain Control 1, so like I didn't want him to go Brain Control as a board, because that's one of his ways to break the board. So I had 2 Book of Moons down for my 2 spies. I also had the Ring to catch his tomato, but I was baiting out a Heavy Storm. I saw somebody in the live stream like comment like, why use Ring first and then books? Well, if the Ring resolves on the tomato and he wanted to use Brain Control as a board, I mean, you could just think about this for a moment. Ring first on tomato, I chain book on the spy. He's thinking, okay, there's still a face-up spy. Chain the second book on the second spy. If he Solemn Judgments that, he's going to go down to 4,000, and then Ring of Destruction is going to resolve, and he's going to be at 2,600. And if he Brain Control, he's going to be at 1,800. So my Heavy and Snatch are likely game in that scenario. Anyway, that's the point, that you Ring first so that if he Solemns later, the Ring still resolves. In this case, he takes the spy. So this is really interesting, actually. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to showcase this video. I actually skipped over it entirely. Or I skipped over my point entirely in the commentary leading up to this. On the previous turns, I had set Book of Moon because I did not want to discard a card from my hand. In particular, I did not want to discard Sinister Serpent. You'll notice, like the previous turn, I had set Magician of Faith. But the turn previous to that, I set Sinister Serpent. And I was making this look like to Geist that I had set Sinister Serpent again by committing the extra back row card. Because if it wasn't Sinister Serpent, why wouldn't I just discard it, right? So when he used Thousand Eyes here, he took my Gravekeeper Spy because he thought my face down was Sinister Serpent. On my turn, I could have, if I wanted to, use Snatch Steel and Tributed for Thunder Dragon and flip Faith. Like, I mean, I don't really have anything to do with that now. I'm not saying why would you do that. I get that. But my point is that by not prioritizing flipping this, I'm making it look like, yeah, it's Sinister. And then when I set a card next to it, you're thinking, you would think if you're up on the opposite side, okay, he's setting a card across from Thousand Eyes, it's most likely going to be Sangan, because who sets real cards against Thousand Eyes? But it could also be like a card like Dekoichi. If I don't believe that he's got a Tsukiyomi, like who's to say? Like, why wouldn't it be just a monster to wall up? But that's not the point. The point is that I'm making him think that this one is Sinister. Just follow me for a moment, because that's going to come up. I also set the Sinister here, by the way, specifically for this reason. It happened to be the case that he drew into right away, but it was this Trap Dust Shoot, because I know that he side decks into 3 Trap Dust Shoot. I know, guys, we talk all the time. He's a really good player. You guys should check out the stuff that he's been involved with. But I set Sinister so that when he drew Dust Shoot and broke up this board, this scenario, by the way, that's another piece of this. I knew that he wasn't running Tsukiyomi. This is another thing I don't like about his deck. I knew he didn't run Tsukiyomi, so I wasn't worried about the flip-flopping, which is some other issue separate. Don't worry about that. My point, though, is that I knew he was going to draw the Dust Shoot before he was going to wind up, or he was more likely to draw Dust Shoot than he was to break this scenario. And when he used Dust Shoot, I wanted to make sure I didn't have Sinister in my hand. So it was really critical that I set it. This way, he continued to think that this one was the Sinister. Anyway, so it comes up here where, sure enough, I draw. He uses Dust Shoot, doesn't see Sinister, rightfully assumes that Sinister's on the board, but wrongly assumes where it is. And this is going to come up. So now I set another monster. He knows it's Gravekeeper Spy. On his turn, he's thinking. He summons Sinister Serpent. He creature swaps. Now I know that he's gonna crash into the Sinister Serpent with his Thousand Eyes, and that's gonna let him steal more monsters from me. Now I think any other player in the world is gonna give him Sinister Serpent, right? But that's not why. The whole point of this play was to play around this exact scenario. And if I give him Sinister Serpent, it'll tell him that this is not Sinister Serpent. So I can't give him Sinister Serpent. And so I decide to give him a Gravekeeper Spy, which is kind of weird. Like, if you're sitting on Sinister Serpent, why would you give your opponent a Gravekeeper Spy? And for me, when I'm sitting there processing this, I thought, man, I screwed the pooch. Like, it kind of gives it away, doesn't it? Like, if I'm not giving you Sinister, why am I not giving you Sinister? It's because I don't want to tell you where Sinister is, which means it's probably not where you think it is. But I don't think guys picked up on that. So when I gave him the Gravekeeper Spy, I don't think he thought too much about it. He just attacked the Sinister and said to himself, well, I know one's a Sinister, I know one's likely a Sanguine, so I'm gonna take the Gravekeeper Spy. And for me, it didn't matter because the way that I was gonna break up this play was always gonna be Heavy Storm and Snatch Steel, attributing for Thunder Dragon. So it didn't really make a difference to me, like, exactly how this played out. Suffice it to say that sucking up my Spy, attributing, noblemening, and then ultimately resolving this Faith and getting back the Book of Moon, that's what changed the game. The whole game stayed up until now has been fairly even, but if you think about it like in terms of a plus-minus bar or whatever, this just swung it like wildly in my direction. Not only am I about to connect for 2200 and put him at range of dying in 2 turns, but he doesn't have access to Sinister, so he can't Metamorphosis or creature swap so easily. If he tries a Sorrow Priest attacking me, I'm going to be able to stop that with Book of Moon. You know, if he doesn't do anything, my Faith can reset. Like, if he wants to set a monster, I got Nolman again. If he wants to set more back rows, I can just Heavy Storm again. So this puts him in a really precarious spot, and it puts him on very limited outs. In particular, he's doesn't have a light right now, but he would need like a light and a BLS to be able to stop what I'm doing and hope that I can dodge it a lot of my outs. So that fundamentally changed the game. And he could have gotten away. The fact is, he could have stopped me if he just picked up on that one piece that, why didn't I give him Sinister Serpent? So now he goes for the Asura Priest attack. And for me, you know, the calculation I'm making is, man, if I Book a Moon this Asura Priest, then and I attack over it on the following turn, it's not going to be a game shot, and I will make BLS live, and I don't have an answer for BLS. So, you know, what do I do here? Do I book it, or do I let this go through? Do I let him kill my board and I try pecking him with the Asura Priest? That's a play, right? Like, my Asura will get to him quicker than his Asura will get to me, and if I could just take back I can book my Faith, I can get back Nolman. So this was a decision point, and my feeling was I can't give him back the Sinister. It's too much. If I take away the Asura Priest and I took away the Sinister, I'm gonna be in a pretty good spot. And you know, if he draws a Mystic Tomato or whatever, my Asura Priest can stay on top of that. I just need him to dodge BLS. And fortunately for me, he did not have BLS. And we get into this spot where my Asura starts putting in work, and I'm feeling out for Asaku or Mirror Force here, and he doesn't have it. And I don't know if he's got Scapegoat or anything like that. I see right now that he doesn't. But this attack connects, and I'm feeling pretty good. And in particular, I structured it this way because if you pay attention to the board now, 16 plus 900 is 2500. So I didn't need to commit like turning his monster to attack mode or leaving my monster in attack mode. I didn't want to be in a spot where BLS could double attack over 2 Sinister Serpents or whatever, and then, you know, deal some combination of damage and put me within really threatening range. So I didn't need to do that, but I did spot there was a game opportunity on the following turn. All I had to do is play around it. I discard my Thunder Dragon so that he can't dust shoot and take away my Asura Priest on the following turn, just in case one of these is a dead dust shoot. I don't know what they are. They're just 2 dead cards. He draws a monster, which unfortunately for him doesn't change the mechanics of the game. He could Nolman my Sinister right now, but this is a very sneaky game shot, and he didn't pick up on it, and he was probably saving his Nolman for something better. But sure enough, that's it. I attack with Asura Priest into the face down, which could have been a Mystic Tomato or whatever, so that's why you want to make sure you can clear out all those monsters. But yeah, the rest, 25. That's game. Really close game. Could have gone anyway. It turns out like all the things I was worried about throughout this match, all the things I was trying to play around, he rarely actually had. We both, like neither of us drew particularly well. I drew duo game 1 and 2, but he had Sinister both times. But this was a really good game, really close game. Oh, it was like almost an hour and 20 minutes or something like that. Definitely interesting. Favorite game of the tournament. Okay, so here's my match against Johnny Lee. A lot of you know him. He used to play regular modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Up until a few years back. Just is dipping his toes into GOAT format, and here he is in the quarterfinals of one of the most prestigious tournaments we have. So really a great player, and I knew it was going to be an interesting match. I lost the rock, paper, scissors. Didn't mean to peek at his hand. It's just something I clicked. But you can see like my hand, not particularly great, but I think Breaker and Nolman are strong cards, so maybe that'll get me there. It's one Thunder Dragon away from being a really great hand. So in particular, he's got Thunder Dragon. Let me just peek at his hand one more time. You'll see that like his hand isn't anything special at all. Actually, it's probably even a better turn 2 hand, so he can build up momentum with this Breaker. You'll see he runs Chaos Turbo with Night Assailant. Without Graceful, the Night Assailant's not actually doing much. So he sets it, and it's like functionally a Man-Eater bug. My Breaker hits this Mirror Force. Nolman hits the Night Assailant. I also opened up Pot of Greed, so great hand on my part. I set Raigeki Break more than or before Saku because I know I'm playing against Chaos Turbo and I'm not expecting Breaker. It just turns out that, oh, actually, sorry, I wasn't even paying attention. He drew Tsukiyomi, so yeah, that's gonna get there. I don't mind if a Dark dies. Also don't mind if this Breaker stays up. I wasn't about to pitch my BLS, right? I could draw on the Thunder Dragon right now and be in a completely different spot. So this game is done, right? Because that's 2 darks, 2 lights, tribe. I don't even need tribe. I didn't even do the math, but that was a quick game 1. BLS is disgusting. So actually interesting. I watched Johnny's earlier matches, and I was able to deduce that he sided in multiple Mind Controls. Mind Control's a great card in the Chaos Turbo Mirror match, in particular because you can get the face down flips, and most Chaos Turbo decks don't run Tsukiyomi, so when you pass them back a flip, there's not much they can do other than Book of Moon it, which is still, I mean, that's reason enough to not want to send it back if you can avoid it. But in the worst case, you can usually take a Chaos Sorcerer. The problem is that a lot of people side in Kaikus, so your Mind Control has like 1 less good target. Taking a Gravekeeper Spy is also not particularly great. There's also breakers that you have to be concerned about. And then you have people like me. I expected multiple Mind Controls coming in from Johnny, so actually I sided out all of my Magician of Faiths. So his Mind Controls won't look good this match. It also goes to show you that all you need is a Thunder Dragon, and then you can make 2 Chaos Sorcerer and a BLS live. You don't need to run Magician of Faith. It's definitely better. I'm not saying you should main deck that, but I'm just saying as a side deck strategy every once in a while, it's definitely viable. So this is the other thing about Mind Control to know. I've talked to Johnny after the event, and I talked to him about running 3, and kind of the problem with that is too often people will side deck Trap Dust Shoot against you, and if your opponent's side decking Trap Dust Shoot and sees your hand and sees the mind control, they will not give you a good opportunity to use the mind control. So mind control is anti-synergistic with the cards that people are already siding against you, and for that reason I don't like using 3. I drew into Tsukiyomi here. Tsukiyomi's a great card in this deck. I can't believe people have been going so long without using it. I think almost since the beginning, I've been on at least 1 Tsukiyomi for a long time. Up until this event, I've been running 2 Tsukiyomi, which may be a bit much, but right here, I'm going to be Tsuki looping these spies, and there's not much that Johnny can do about it. And sure enough, I draw into Graceful with Thunder Dragons and Sinister in my hand. This game is about to run away from him real quick. And I drew into another Dust Shoot. So just a quick check. I've got 36 on the board from the spies, 11 from the Tsukiyomi. That brings me up to 47. Sorcerer on top of that brings me up to 7,000. He's at 9,000. So you can see Upstart didn't actually make the difference there. But if I can, you know, trade out that Tsukiyomi for a tribe, I can get within 15, like within striking distance of be short by 15. But I could also put us all in a position where, you know, if I look at his hand, I see that it's dead, and I do. I can apply so much pressure that none of this actually matters. Sure enough, he draws for his turn. He draws a monster that is really unfortunate for him. I send it back with Dust Shoot, and I see again that he's got these cards that aren't doing much, and I have a Regeki Break to break up his back row. So I'm thinking, you know, I might push on my following turn. It's going to be a quick game. And sure enough, yeah, that's exactly what I do. I opt not to overcommit to the board. My tribe and noblemen are going to answer pretty much anything that he's got. I know that he's got a mind control, so I'm actually going to bait the Sinister here. I also don't care if he noblemans it, because I could also just and if he doesn't do anything, which he won't, but if he did, I could tribute for that Thunder Dragon. Either way, it's the best card, and it's, my point is, yeah, so you didn't accomplish anything. He does mind control the Sorcerer, still fine. I mean, I'm applying so much pressure, and there's not much he can do about it. These spies really put in work. It was an example of how effective they were in the mirror match compared to a card like Mystic Tomato. Johnny drew Graceful Charity, great card for him to draw in that scenario, but I still think it's probably going to be too little too late. And sure enough, it was. So very quick match. I think I won decisively because I sided out Magician of Faiths, because I ran Gravekeeper Spy, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And I didn't run 3 Mind Control, I ran 2. So that's that. Now let's talk about my finals match against the Nano. This one was pretty remarkable. I had pretty handily defeated the Nano earlier on in the tournament, and I was hoping for a repeat performance, but let's check out what happened. This time I won Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I did open up Graceful, no Thunder Dragon or anything like that. Not going to be too lucky. I set Torrential. I don't actually like Torrential in this deck, but it's kind of an OCD reason I included it. Doesn't matter. But we take a peek. I didn't mean to show his hand, but whatever. We take a peek at his hand, and his hand is amazing. So he uses Pot of Greed, draws 2 cards. One of those is a Solemn Judgment, and it's like, wow, I'm really going to get locked out of this match. He doesn't go for the super greedy play with the Magician of Faith, and he just sets a card. And I don't use Graceful because I'm expecting him to at least not set the real one the first time. I know a bit about him, about how he plays, and I didn't expect him to do that. But he draws Graceful, resolves the Knight Assailant, gets back the Faith. I'll note that even if he didn't have the Knight Assailant, that was literally anything else, like in particular, say like he did really discard a light and a dark or whatever. Maybe it makes Chaos Sorcerer, I don't know. Chaos Sorcerer, I mean, Knight Assailant's broken. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to make a joke. Maybe he didn't actually need it. Maybe he was doing fine without it. Anyway, so I get into this spot. I'm pretty sure I'm going to Graceful now to try to draw into a nobleman. But he has Solemn Judgment, and the downside of that is that I don't have a lot of plays. The upside of that is he's at 4,000, and that's a big cost, and I'm hoping that I can apply some pressure to take advantage of that. So I Snatch Steal the Koichi, and I Tsukiyomi it, and I try to get something going, and sure enough I draw Thunder Dragon. So I've got like a light and a dark accessible to me. Now he's at 5,000 because I used Upstart, and yeah, he's gonna go down to 36. So I'm hoping to win a life point game. It's gonna be tough though. So now we're at the spot where the Nano summons DD Warrior Lady, and that's kind of a weird card to run in Chaos Turbo, but I'm put in a spot where if he attacks it, I could book his DD Warrior Lady, and I could Suki Loop the Koichi on my following turn. But the problem is that if I do that, I have to commit to my summon, the Tsukiyomi, and I still don't have any way of putting a dark in my graveyard. So on the following turn after that, DD Warrior Lady is just going to attack the Koichi anyway, but I won't have established any board presence on my following turn. On the other hand, I could just book the Koichi and just get an extra draw, and on my following turn, set Faith to try to get back Graceful. So I decided to do that because the book isn't really going to see much value in this matchup otherwise, and I draw in a Gravekeeper Spy. Gravekeeper Spy, I was hoping would do more, but it gets Nolman. And my opponent summons Chaos Sorcerer and sets a Magician of Faith and functionally locks me out of the game. This game's pretty much over. And so game one went by super fast. My opponent drew really well. In game two, I'm thinking, wow, I drew really well. Also, this is a great way to start game two. I'm really glad for that. I use Graceful because I have the Magician of Faith, and I think that if I set it first, my opponent might not necessarily Noman the first one, or maybe I can draw into another flip to get that going. Slash, I can draw into another Dust Shoot. I mean, that's why you run Dust Shoot. So I'm seeing what I can get going, and I see this hand, and I'm pretty sure Sangen's definitely going to go, and I don't know if I discard Koichi or Breaker here. I discard the Faith. Oh, so that's interesting. So in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, it doesn't matter if he Nolman's this. I'm going to have... This is a really aggressive hand. So I'm looking at it in terms of a game shop. I see Chaos Sorcerer and Breaker being able to power through and deal damage and lock him out of the game, in combination with Mystical Space Typhoon after I resolve a Dust Shoot and peek at his hand. The bottom line here is I'm going to go for a game shot relatively soon. I'm going to set the Koichi, and I'm going to try to set up enough pressure so that I can win in a turn or two with this hand. Or at least that's the game plan. But as you can see from taking a peek over at the Nano's hand, he opens up with Pod and Graceful again. And the two Thunder Dragons will slow him down just a little bit, but not so much because the Graceful is going to get rid of both of those. And that's unfortunate for me because... yeah, I thought I had this in the bag, but he had a really strong hand. And now it doesn't matter what happens. There's 5 cards in his hand that he's left with that I don't know what they are. So I'm not equipped to go for game. And he drew into a duo. So I had a decision here where I could have kept the Chaos Sorcerer, but I thought that Breaker was actually going to be able to apply more pressure slash answer a face down. This is kind of a tough call. If he had just set a monster, it wasn't like I was going to summon Chaos Sorcerer to attack the face down. So that was kind of a tough call, but in the end I went with Breaker, and that I think worked out because, yeah, it caught the Solemn Judgment. But I'm in a terrible spot. He drew Faith along with all those other good cards and is able to resolve Pot again. Thankfully, he doesn't have a Dark. This, I think, is like one of the issues with his deck. His deck is a little different. He also sides into, I think, a Warrior package against a Mirror Match, and those Earth monsters wind up paying or costing him some moments in this match. So in this case, I drew for my turn and I set a spy and I did not activate Upstart Goblin. The last thing I want to do in this spot where it's pretty precarious is draw into another Gravekeeper Spy. If he's got an Omen, I want to make sure he gets rid of all of them. Sure enough, that's exactly what happens. And then I drew a Delinquent Duo, and I'm thinking that's a really good card right now. I need to make sure that you know, I strip my opponent of resources before, you know, it turns bad for me. And, you know, much to my own fortune, I hit the BLS, and that's the thing that really keeps me alive in the game. He still doesn't have a dark because he opted to discard Exile Force instead of Night Assailant. I mean, I understand why he wanted to keep Night Assailant, because he's got Faith on the board, and once Faith goes to the graveyard, he's going to be able to Night Assailant. But as long as I don't attack Faith, I'm not really in any danger. So this is like another element of being able to, I mean, I don't have anything to attack Faith with right now anyway, but I'm also saying that this is something to keep in mind. You don't want to make Night Assailant live if you can avoid it. In this case, he attacked my Magician of Faith, which was really interesting because that makes me think that he could have drawn a Book of Moon for the turn, or maybe even had a Book of Moon face down the whole time. Either case, I'm going to take the Graceful Charity. So he passes, I draw a Heavy Storm, and I'm thinking, you know, do I have the opportunity to wait here? I also know, by the way, that I sided in to Kaiku's, so I'm thinking that like I have an opportunity here to apply pressure between the Heavy Storm and the Graceful Charity. The last thing I want to do though is Heavy Storm into a Book of Moon and have to use my Nolman, and all told only Graceful Charity and keep one of those cards, because that's really tough. But at the same time, if it is or if he does have access to a Book of Moon anytime soon, I can't let him reuse any of that. That Magician of Faith is really dangerous on the board. And you know, moreover, I've got a Light in the Dark, I've got a Heavy Storm. If I draw into BLS, that's game. So it's like there's no reason for me, you know, not to go for it. I don't draw into BLS, but I drew some really interesting cards here. I think that if you look at this position, a lot of people would play this differently than the way I wound up playing it. So I was scared about Book of Moon, so I wanted to be able to keep the option of, you know, if I go Heavy Storm, then use Nobleman. So, you know, I'm keep thinking, oh, I want to keep those. I want to keep Cast Sorcerer because that's a game shot. I also want to keep Kaiku though, because that's going to be a really powerful card to apply pressure. So, you know, it's really tough. Like, I wish I had one more card to discard, because then then it becomes clear what you should discard. I'm also thinking not just on this turn, but on future turns. For example, if I summon a Kaiku right now and I'm able to connect through the Magician of Faith and there is no Regeki Break back there, just pretend, or say I Heavy Storm it. You know, how do I connect through a face down monster to do damage? So like, I guess I'm saying you could discard Thunder Dragon and Chaos Sorcerer, you could discard Thunder Dragon and Nolan across that, you could discard Thunder Dragon Heavy Storm, or Thunder Dragon and Kaiku. Like, all of these actually I think are very viable plays. In the end, ultimately, I decided to discard Thunder Dragon and Kaiku, which is really tough because Kaiku is super strong in this matchup. And my play was to summon Chaos Sorcerer, banish the Faith, and prompt a Book of Moon if there was a Book of Moon, and not use Heavy Storm, and hopefully draw into more cards to apply more pressure. I did not see a way that I could win through more cards, and you'll see in a second one sec what I do. I didn't see a way for me to win through much else. I felt like I need him to set a dark right now and me Nolman it and keep the pressure on by not giving an opportunity to discard any darks. In this case, he wound up setting his dark, which is, I think this is, I don't know. I mean, I get it. You're a dark away. You don't have a way to deal with Sorcerer. I guess, I don't know. I mean, maybe he could have Phoenix Wind Blast, put my Sorcerer on top, and just sat on the Torrential for a little bit. I don't know, but it really does lock him out of the game when I resolve this Nolman, or even if I didn't draw BLS, it would have locked him out of the game. But sure enough, yeah, I drew BLS, and it was like that was the game card, and he didn't use Phoenix Wind Blast. It's so curious that like he thought that the Night Assailant was going to catch this Chaos Sorcerer. That didn't seem particularly smart. I mean, I don't know what your Mystical Space Typhoon is doing for you. So I just think this was a misplay on his end and a misreading of the situation. Like, I don't think he thought about what other kind of cards I could have in my hand. And sure enough, yeah, I drew BLS, and that's how I won. But it all stems back to me thinking back to the turn before, and that took, you know, if I look at the log here, I think I drew Graceful, and, you know, drew these cards at 17:24, and I didn't discard for 4 minutes. So I sat there for 4 minutes thinking about that, and that was really like one of the only ways I thought I could win this match. And that's it. Yeah, I drew the card I needed, and I won the match. It's not that spectacular of a story, but at the same time, I did plan for that, and it was the only thing I think that could have happened, and that's how I won this game. So yeah, now we're going to game 3, and it's wild. I opened pretty good, actually. And you should know that the Nano and I played earlier on in this tournament in the Swiss rounds, and there was one moment in that match where I Nolmaned the Morphing Jar, and so I knew that he ran Morphing Jar. And I also know, like, this is gonna sound weird, but I have like this sort of sixth sense for Morphing Jar. It's one of my favorite GOAT control cards. And as soon as he set this card, I don't know what it was about it. There was nothing in particular. Like, I think it could have just as well been a Dekoichi, but I sensed it was Morphing Jar. And I looked at my hand, and it doesn't really change anything of how I play, right? Because you're going to use Nolman first, and, you know, then I don't know, that your second monster with ace sets or whatever, you're going to use Mind Control. It doesn't really change my play, but I did feel like it was Morphing Jar. And I used Nolman before I discarded Thunder Dragon, and then he used Solemn Judgment, and it sort of revealed to me, okay, at this point, it's, I think, obviously, either he's being hyper-aggressive by protecting his Dekoichi, or it's probably a Morphing Jar. I thought it was probably Morphing Jar, so I saw an opportunity to really go plus here, and sure enough, that's exactly what I did. I discarded with Thunder Dragon, I set my Dekoichi, I set my 2 back row cards, and I flipped the jar, and he had Sinister, unfortunately, and I draw into pot, fortunately, and that sets off this scenario where I'm just basically praying he doesn't have Heavy Storm, because if he doesn't have Heavy Storm, I think I'm going to be in a really good spot to take control of this match. I trap Dushu, I see his hand. I put back the Chaos Sorcerer because he had a light and dark already, and I don't have... I mean, I have Regeki Breaks and Ring of Destruction to answer Sorcerer, but I felt like, how do I put this? I guess I was kind of banking that the spies were going to be applying pressure, and that my Dust Tornadoes and Regeki Breaks were going to probably catch these Phoenix Wind Blasts. I didn't actually anticipate him to do what he did, which was set his hand before activating things, before activating Upstart. Unfortunately for him, that tells me, you know, where after he uses Nolman's Crossout, I know which two are the Phoenix Wind Blast, so I don't think that was particularly great. I also knew that he kept the Book of Moon and Sinister and Serpent in his hand, so I knew that, like, I knew what these 3 cards were, and when he flips up this Nolman, I'm going to know where the remaining 2 are, because he's hoping to resolve the Morphing Jar. But he's not going to just activate it, because I could have Ring of Destruction down. He's going to use it as a defensive play. And so he sets 2, and, you know, I don't want to I actually think that this is a Solemn Judgment, so I don't want to be caught in a scenario where I'm trying to destroy a Morphing Jar with a Ring of Destruction, and he uses Solemn Judgment and is able to resolve that jar. So I'm pretty sure in the end phase, yeah, I just destroy the jar, and I say, okay, let's get rid of that. And I'm in a really great spot where I'm going to Dust Tornado one of his back rows that I know is a Wing Blast, because I don't want him to do that multiple times. I wind up setting a second Dust Tornado. I'm hoping that I can catch him using it, not on my end phase. I mean, sorry, when I set this Mystical Space Typhoon in future turn, and then just be able to apply pressure with a flipped Spy. So my goal right now is to flip up Spy, And sure enough, he on his turn uses the Wing Blast to just set me back a turn, which is fine because he's losing the game now. That's not doing anything for him. I'm happy to pass it right back to him. It's basically like he said, hey, I'll give up my turn so that you give up your turn, and I'm just happy to do that if it removes a resource from you. That's one of the reasons I like Regeki Break better than Wing Blast. Not saying Spy is the best draw here, but it doesn't really fundamentally change the game. Regeki Break actually fundamentally changes the game. I MST, what I know is the Solemn Judgment, or sorry, what I suspect is Solemn Judgment. And him, I don't blame him. He's summoning Chaos Sorcerer to go for damage. And this goes back to the difference between me and I think some other people about what I'm about to do here. So again, the game's out of control for him. I've got too many cards, too many live cards, and he's got to start applying pressure and put me within game range. That said, I know his face down is Book of Moon. So at the start of his main phase, or like after he summons Sorcerer, I say Book Snake. Okay, so the reason I do this is, like, this is me thinking on the fly. I want him to remember that I know that his face down is Book of Moon. And by me saying it, this next move I'm about to do, where he enters battle phase and immediately declares an attack. And I say, actually, upon entering battle phase, I pretend that this sucks. I Dust Tornado the book. Now, really, the chances that he's going to book his Sorcerer here, I'm not high. But what I'm really trying to convey to him is that I have Mirror Force face down. Or rather, I want him to think that I have Mirror Force face down. So, like, I could be lying. Maybe this is me just trying to get him to not attack. You know what I mean? Like, I want him to think that I'm trying to bait him into believing that it's Mirror Force and not attacking. But he's going to think, well, that's not true, because why would you reveal this information to me upon entering battle phase? Like, it's because that's giving it away. You're basically telegraphing that it's Mirror Force. So I'm going to man up. Either way, he's thinking, his decision tree is, should I attack or not attack? His decision tree is not, should I use Book of Moon on this Chaos Sorcerer or not? And for me, there's no other time when I can use this Dust Tornado where he doesn't chain Book of Moon on the Chaos Sorcerer. And I need Chaos Sorcerer face up so that I can go Snatch, Steal, and Tsukiyomi and take control of the game. Because after that, as soon as I got rid of the Book of Moon, and, you know, I'm going to Snatch, Steal onto my following turn, remove the Breaker, Suki, flip it up, and hit for 34 and put him at 900. And that's going to put a lock on the game once I set Regeki Break. So me knowing there's no other better time to activate the Book of Moon, I do one little quick trick there at the end to basically guarantee that he doesn't chain the Book of Moon on the Sorcerer, which if he did, like, it would have been, like, I don't really have a great way to deal with that. But sure enough, yeah, he doesn't chain Book of Moon. And I take the damage, and from here, I'm basically going to win the game. I set the second Regeki Break thinking, you know, if he sets Sinister in another card, or if he pots into a monster and another card like Gravekeeper Spy and the Regeki Break, I can pop both of them by discarding the 2 cards that are in my hand and swinging for 23. So as long as he doesn't draw a Pot of Greed into, for example, BLS or something like that, and something else, or Graceful Charity, game's on lock. He draws DD Warrior Lady, again, that awkward card to run in Chaos Turbo, and that's it. That's a wrap. I win the game, and then I win the championship, and that's it. So there was a stunning moment in game 2 that looked like there was no way I was going to win, that I came back from, and then in game 3, I think just tight technical play and looking for opportunities to score that final damage are what helped me come over the top and ultimately win the tournament. And that's it. That's a recap of my matches. So let's go back to the finale of this thing. I shared all that with you to say that the 3 things that were I feel integral to my success in this tournament were my team, my deck, and the way I play. And I don't think there is necessarily anything inherently unique about that combination of things. I think that you could have a team. I think you could come up with a great deck list. I don't think mine was particularly great, but I think that you can come up with something great. And I also think that you can play. You're perfectly capable of playing, exceptionally better than me, even, and not just in making reads or in controlling the flow of information, like Dale and I had talked about, but even in your technical play and how to utilize cards in a interesting and unexpected ways. I think that's within your power, and I hope that you feel that way after having watched this video. So that said, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to catch you next year at the Clash of Champions tournament. Take care. Oh, and don't forget, if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to see more content like this from GoFormat.com. Thanks.